I'm going to make sure your life's a living hell. And this is where it starts. Meet the Coffin Confessor, Bill Edgar.
No, you do not want to get an engraved dildo in the mail.
So I deliver gifts from the afterlife. I call it the Afterlife Delivery Service.
So she became a sex worker for people with disabilities.
And people say, oh, one day, Bill, you'll get your karma. Well, I probably will.
Oh, the Americans sent the ashes back to you.
Yeah, they sent him back.
Welcome back to the Andy Rowe Show. Bill Edgar is an Australian man known as the Coffin Confessor. Last time we had him on the show, we talked to him about how he crashed funerals for a living on behalf of the person that's passed away. We've got more of those stories for you, as well as how his job has evolved into also delivering gifts to those that are left behind, whether it's a letter, some valuables, or even a dildo from an ex-jilted lover. Bill Edgar's stories are about as loose as it gets. This episode is brought to you by AG1. There's never been a better time to give this a try. If you head to drinkag1.com/Andy Rowe now, you will get yourself a free bottle of vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 free travel packs with your first order. AG1 is a super amazing and easy addition to your morning routine that takes just seconds but has massive benefits. I mix just 1 scoop with a glass of water and I know I'm giving my body the nourishment that it needs. Head to drinkag1.com/Andy Rowe now or click on the QR code and go and get yourself some freebies. We'll put a link in the show notes as well. Hope you enjoy the episode, and if you do, stop right now, go and share it, support us, leave a review, share us on social media. Makes a massive difference and takes you just seconds. Go and do it. Welcome to the Coffin Confessor Part 2.
Just to give people that are new to this, that haven't heard the first episode, a quick rundown. Your story started with a mate called Graham.
Yeah, basically, Graham was a client of mine. I was working for him in the PI and investigative matter. He asked me to do some work for him, and he was on his deathbed, and we started talking about death, life, and everything in between. And I as a joke, I just said, look, Graham, I could always crash your funeral for you if you don't want to do your own eulogy or you've got no one that can speak on your behalf. I'd gladly crash your funeral for you. And he took me up on the offer, and since then, I guess it's become one of those things that I'm now paid to crash funerals and tell those that were loved how much they were loved, and those that my clients didn't like to fuck off. So, and it went global. It went nuts, and it's still, doors just keep opening for the the things that I do, and it's unique.
Speaking of doors, penthouse. Walk me through that. I did not, when I first spoke to you, envisage you as a penthouse pet. Tell us the yarn.
Wasn't that a yarn? I mean, some things come. I've always said a phone call can change someone's life, be it good or bad. A phone call can do that. And I received this phone call while having breakfast with my wife. We were having a breakfast and we're just out and sitting there, and then you get this call and they said, really love what you do, love the story. We'd like you to be in the Penthouse magazine. And I'm thinking, Penthouse, like centerfold girls and all that, because I'm going back to old school 80s, 80s, 90s when Penthouse was Penthouse. And today it's a lot different, but that's how I envisioned it. And when they told me that it was more, it's a different type of magazine these days, and it's not as smutty and all this, and it's got really good articles. And, my wife and I, we immediately went and bought one just to have a look. And we went online and had a look at their online presence and that. And I think, why not? Let's do it. And, so I became a penthouse pet for a little bit. It was pretty cool.
So wild. And you've done a TED Talk as well?
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, TED came to me and they said, look, we'd love you to do a talk in Sydney, and this is what we want. And I said, I'll do the TED Talk, but this is how I do it. And they said, oh, but we sort of want, and I go, well, what you want and what I do are two different things. I said, so either it's my way or the highway. And they were great. They said, look, okay, cool. We'll do it your way, Bill. You do what you do, because we've seen a few of your interviews. We love what you do. We're going to trust you, and we're going to put faith in that it's going to go over well. So, Yeah, no, it was incredible. But I got to say, standing behind the curtain, ready to go on, they can't count down from 10. And the lady comes up to me and she's like a producer and she says, "Remember not to swear." Well, fuck, that's what I do.
That's my thing.
I'm like that. I swear, and I'm that's in my head. And then the lady goes, 3, 2, 1, walk on stage, and I walk on stage, and I've still got this don't swear. And the first thing I say is, "Excuse me, sit down, shut up, or fuck off. I got something to say, and this is what it is."
Oh my
So,
gosh.
but it went over really well. And you know what? It's not like I swear just for the sake of swearing. I swear in context.
Yeah.
I really do. It's basically, and plus it's what my clients want. If they don't want swearing, they don't get it. If they do want swearing, they get it. It's really what they have to say.
You've started a business as well. Well, you started one. I think you've sold it now as well. The coffin camping. What's all this
Oh,
about?
fuck. That was a great idea. You know what? I want to revisit it. I really do, because it was so cool. It was a very unique idea. I had 4 coffins. Each coffin had an iPad that was interfaced with the other people in the other coffins. You could open them or close them. You lay in there, you have a beer or a wine, and you talk about things. And it was, for me, I did it a couple of nights, and it was very cathartic. What an experience.
I don't even think I'd get into a coffin if the lid was open.
Oh, you'll have to one day.
Oh. I love your authenticity. You got into a grave at one point as well, didn't you? Like what? Your second book opens with you in a grave.
Yeah, it does. I actually, a gentleman had engaged me. He had the cruelest family. He really did. He had vultures in the family. They were cruel to him. They were just waiting for him to die. And he had some valuables that him and his wife had, and he didn't want to leave them behind. He wanted to take them with him or bury them, or he didn't want his family to get them. And he kept asking me, where's the best place to bury him? And I'm thinking, I don't know, I could bury him and plant a tree on him or do something ridiculous like that. And then I was at another funeral and I thought, wow, what if I jump in his grave, dig a hole, bury them there, and when they lower the casket on and fill it up, he's taking them with him. And that's what happened.
Like
Yeah.
dug a little hole underneath where the casket was going to go, buried his belongings.
Mm. Yeah, I got lowered down to the grave. I mean, everybody has a bit of a price, and even a grave digger, when you see him digging the grave, or you yell out to him, you say, "G'day, mate, look, I'm so-and-so. I'd love to jump in a grave. I'm just doing a documentary or something," and they go, "Oh, I can't let you do that, mate." And I go, "Look, if I flick you a couple $100, $500, would you?" "Oh, yeah, fuck yeah. Why not?" You know, He's a guy you wouldn't think you could really trust. He's- he was sort of, "Oh, yeah, no worries, mate. Jump on the loader." And he lowers me down in the grave. And then he says, and he's got a smoke hanging out his mouth, and he looks over at me, and I'm down the hole, and he goes, "I'll be back in a minute." And he drove off. And like, the only fucking person that knows I'm down there is him. No one in the world knows where I am except this guy that's just lowered me down the hole. And he said he'll be back in a minute. I'm like, fuck, that's a long minute. And that minute took like 5 minutes and then 10 minutes. And it was, I don't know, nearly 15 minutes. I was down there. So I sort of lay down there and just hung out for a bit.
Just casually hung out, just lying down in someone's.
Or couldn't climb out. I don't care who you are. You try and you can't climb out of a grave. I'm telling you, and they're not 6 foot under. They're like, this one was 8 to 10 foot under, and
Oh,
it was
really?
too wide. I'm not saying I didn't try.
So you had a few. You tried to scramble up the sides.
Yeah.
Oh.
Why not? I mean, it's just one of those things. When you're in that position, you want to try all different things, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up laying down and I just relaxed and just looked at the clouds going past, and I thought, fuck, if I'm ever going to be buried in one of these, no way.
Really?
The neighbours are shit.
They ain't got much chat. What have you? So you've out of that experience, you decided that you don't want to be buried.
Oh, that and a few other experiences, I suppose. I just can't see the concept of being buried and your remains being placed in one place where your family feel terrible if they don't visit you all the time. You know what I mean? I'd rather be in the ocean, and so that way my family, wherever they are in the world, there's an ocean.
You did an interesting thing with your dad's ashes, didn't you?
The Ash Traveller.
The Ash Traveller.
That's cool, mate. That came out of a guy that wanted to travel the world, and he was dying and he wanted to travel the world, and he didn't wanted his ashes just thrown into a plane or a train or something. And he had this idea, and then for no reason, he just sort of gave me a call and said, "Oh, Bill, thanks anyway, but I'm not going to do that now. It's not something I want to do." And I said, "Yeah, no problem. People change their minds all the time. If you change it again, let me know." And he went about his life, and then I couldn't get this out of my head. And every now and then I'd see my dad's ashes in the garage where they've been for like 20, 30 fucking years or 40 years, whatever. And I thought, I wonder if I could do that to the old man. He's always wanted to travel and get around. So I put him in 4 flasks, and I had the flask engraved, basically saying, if you find this flask on your travels, please leave it in a plane, train, or somewhere that someone else can pick it up and do the same. And I sent them to 4 different places: one in Europe, one America, one in Australia, and the other one in Ireland. And the one in America got sent back, so they didn't like him over there. They sent him back, and
The Americans sent the ashes back to you.
Yeah, they sent him back. Yeah, they didn't want him.
Didn't get through customs.
So, yeah, probably not. No, he actually got to the bar, because I sent him to a bar called the Long Bar, I think it was, in Chicago or somewhere. And it got to the bar and it said, "Oh, this premises is now closed."
Oh, it's a long way to travel for your old man.
Yeah. So anyway, when he came back, I ended up throwing him on the back of a big lorry, a truck, and then watched him go, and I'm like, "See ya." So I don't know where he ended up.
You're starting to get recognised more. Like when you turn up to a funeral, it's not as straightforward as it used to be, right? Like people are expecting, they see your face at a funeral and they know something's going to happen. How does that change your role?
It doesn't change my role at all. It does change the dynamics of the place. I got to say, 4 days before Christmas this year or last year, 4 days before Christmas, I had to crash a wake. This wake had 120 people at it. And it was also viewed online by 240 people. So it was like 350, 60 people. And as I've sort of hidden in the background, I sort of watched everybody go into this area, and they're sitting down at these tables. The place is packed, and I'm ready to go in. And just as I get to the door, it opens, and I walk in, and there's a guy on the right-hand side, quite a big bloke, and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh shit, who's getting thrown out today?" I just went, "What?" So he knew straight away, And then I could see him talking to the lady next to him. And my cue was when the deceased daughter was speaking. So his son was still up there speaking at this time. So I had to wait for the daughter to get up. And so whilst I'm waiting, Chinese whispers went around the room so fucking quick that people were sort of turning around and looking and doing stuff. So I'm sort of hiding behind this pillar so that not everyone could see me. And then all of a sudden the daughter gets up, says a few words, and I come in and I say, "Excuse me, sit down, shut up or fuck off. I've got something to say on behalf of the man in the urn, and this is what it is." But yeah, it doesn't change what I do. It just changes the group.
Tell me a bit more about
What I
the
had to
story.
say.
Yeah, tell me about. Give me some background on the story if you can, without breaking.
He was it was a great story, mate. It really was. It was so cool. He was such a nice bloke. He died of pancreatic cancer. He didn't know he had cancer. How's this for you? He had no idea he had cancer until the morning he couldn't eat. And then I think it was a month later he died. And he'd been going to hospital regularly and doctors regularly throughout his life, getting checkups and everything. And he had no fucking idea. No one never told him anything about pancreatic cancer. And one morning he went out for breakfast with his wife and he couldn't eat. And they went to the doctors the next day and they said, "You'd be lucky to live 3 months."
Oh, mate.
It was, mate, I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. But nicest bloke, had a lot of friends. And his crash was basically very loving. It was funny. It was heartfelt. He said to me to read out his letter, and the start of his letter was actually he had 3 daughters and a son. Yeah, so he had 3 daughters and a son, and I don't know, 10 grandchildren. And the start of his letter was uh, to my kids: don't you dare build a granny flat or put your mother in a retirement home. I'll come and haunt you if you fuckers do that. And I thought that was cool.
Brilliant.
And the wife's sitting there and she's going, yeah, yeah, and it was really nice because he was like, I want to see her thrive and live life, without being stuck in a granny flat or you guys hovering around her, and just let her live. She's got a lot of friends. She owns her property, let her live. And it was good.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, it was. It was. And then I guess the hardest part about that, though, is when I crash something, I try not to look the audience directly in the eye, any particular person. But this one table had 8 children, all under the age of, say, 19, 20. And the eldest one's probably 11. And they're sitting at this table and they're all crying. And I've got up and I've just interrupted. And I'm looking at that table and I'm thinking to myself, fuck, that's going to be me one day with my grandchildren. And I'm sitting there and I look at them and I'm reading exactly what he's once said. And then it got to the grandchildren. And I was so elated to be able to read directly to the grandchildren because I couldn't take my eyes off them. And he says, and his grandchildren called him Dar, D-A-R. Then that was something that he loved, the word, the name Dar. And I looked at the grandchildren and I said, and to you 8 children sitting at the table, your Dar says, I love you very much. Please enjoy life and never forget to live. Live to the fullest. Do what you can when you can and never, ever, ever give up. I love you all so much. And that was, each one of them just smiled, and it made my job a lot easier, I tell you, when I saw the smiles, because it was hard watching them cry.
Have you ever, like that? I mean, I can feel a tear coming on myself there. Like, do you not get, is this emotion not affect you at all, ever?
Not ever. I mean, I feel it. I just don't allow it to come to me. I mean, I cried and had so much hate and fear and hurt since I was a child. I think most of it's been taken out from me, if you know what I mean. Like, I've experienced so much pain and hurt that I just don't feel it anymore. And some people say that's cold, and it might be in my reaction, but deep down I feel it and I see it. For some reason, I just don't. It's like pain. I have one of the highest pain tolerances that anyone could imagine. I used to love fighting. I love going out and getting beat up just to feel pain because I needed to feel something. Um, and abuse did that to me in a horrid way. But I mean, it's one of those things that I guess has made me, be able to do what I do.
Yeah, your background is very unique, like the abuse that you went through, and then the living on the streets, and then jail, and all that kind of stuff is it's always going to have an effect.
Oh, for sure. And like, one of the things that was quite unique since last time we spoke, I've been fighting the Anglican Church and the school for over 35 years. And in September last year, they finally broke down and said, we're sorry. And we settled. After 35 odd years, we finally settled. They finally came and said, okay, well, you're not a liar. We apologize. Well, fuck you. You did call me a liar for 35 years and you did all this shit. And if it wasn't for people like yourself, Andy, and other podcasters and other things, I don't think I would have ever got to the table of negotiation and telling my story. And I'm thankful that there's people like you out there that are able to give us a voice and for us to be able to say, this shit did happen. And I'm sick of it being swept under the carpet and it's hurtful and everything else. But at the same time, excuse me, now the church has come forward and said, oh, we're sorry. here's money. Here, well, what I call it is here's fuck your feelings money. Go away now. You've done enough damage. And I'm like, well, thanks for the, fuck your feelings money, but I ain't going away.
Yeah, it's wild how I mean the church the church and abuse is something it's a whole new rabbit warren that we could go down. But I would never take any credit for giving you a voice. Like your voice is like you've done all that yourself. You've written the books and you've earned the right to have a voice across platforms much bigger than mine, much bigger than mine.
And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to tell my story. And it's funny how my story intertwines with the Coffin Confessor and the stories I hear. I mean, I'm now sitting with fucking people that, one guy that was a pedophile, I had to sit in front of and listen to his story about how he abused his nieces. And I'm like, I wanted to rip the bloke's face off. You know what I mean? It was hard, but at the same time, it's a job and it's something that I had to do. And it's something that I was looking at the nieces more than him. I was happy he was dying, but I wanted to see the nieces and see how they lived and if they'd survived and become survivors.
So what was the role you played in that?
Oh, it was a delivery of letters, confessions, sorrowful letters from him, which really probably didn't mean fuck all to them. And I had two choices. One, take the job on, burn the letters and say, fuck you. Or two, is what I did, is take the letters, deliver them and let them decide what they want to do with them, So, at the end of the day, it was it's a job that I did and I did it out of a great deal of grit. I kept my cool and it was it's like any person that you sit in front of who's committed a bad crime, you ask them why, and you know what? There's never a real answer. It's always, I don't know, it just happened, or that, it's just bullshit. I just think they're broken inside, and it's best they're dead.
It annoyed me a little bit, that story, in the way that the guy could have posted the letters to his nieces himself, but that would carry some sort of accountability while he's still alive. So he's got you to do the job so that he doesn't have to face the repercussions of any sort of aftermath once they had his sorrowful letters.
Yeah, I get that. And I also, I went through those thoughts and emotions too. And then I thought to myself, maybe it's a case that the nieces would never know if he died or not. So it might be a good way for me to tell him that the prick's now dead and that he's never going to see him again, and they're never going to feel vulnerable or hurt, and they're never going to run into him in a shopping centre, a bus, plane, train, whatever, you know. So in that way, that's how I sort of dealt with it. And I thought, you know what, this prick's dead. This is what he's left you. Read it, don't read it, up to you.
Yeah, that's true. They can choose not to read it. I guess your second book is focused a little bit on confessions, isn't it? And there's a story of the truck driver who came across an accident.
Yeah. So, and this was more of a PI job he hired me to do. And it weaved between my profession as a private investigator and the Coffin Confessor, whereas I had to locate family members of these people that had died in a car accident. And he was one of the first responders back in the, early, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s or something. And, he came across this accident, and I can't say instead of helping, because he already realized that the people were dead. He knew that they were dead, but he robbed them. And that was something that he had to live with for the rest of his life, is knowing that he actually stole money from the people that were dead, and it would have been, and it was, I mean, I sat with the guy and I could see his emotion, his feelings, and he'd lived with this his whole life. And it was a secret that he just couldn't take anymore. And although his life had came out good, it was the one thing in his life that he did so bad that he felt so guilty for, that he ended up his whole life paying back to society, like thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars he paid forward and paid for people's petrol, food, charities. He did this his whole life, all because of that one incident.
You found the family forum, didn't you? And then
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah. The people that come over, they were a young couple. They were going to start a business up in Broome, I think it was, um, and they found they come from let's say they come from England, right? And they go to Australia, but they go to the hottest fucking place you can imagine in Broome because they buy this business that's really cheap. And they end up going up there. They're as white as white. They turn pink as soon as the sun hits them, and they're fucking poor bastards. And then they decide that's it. We're out of here. We're getting out of that. And so they hit the road and they decide to start travelling Australia. And unfortunately, they didn't get far. They got Western Australia to a place called Orange, I think it was.
and then they had the car accident, and they died. The truck driver comes along. He finds them dead, takes the money, and ends out doing quite well from it. Yeah, I can see how that would live with you.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, their family didn't want anything to do with him, but they were just you can't say grateful, but they were grateful that the man had, I guess, in their words, they said he had to repent every day by paying it forward, and they were grateful of that he may have helped other people out. You know, so they saw the good in the bad that he'd done.
In your business, there's a fine sort of balance that you'd have to kind of tread when it comes to different cultures. And you've
Mm.
crashed in your book. You talk about crashing a Maori funeral and a Fijian funeral, and
You know what? Yeah, you cross boundaries, but at the same time, I don't believe it matters anymore because today's way of doing things, and of course there's traditions, but I'm there on behalf of the deceased. I'm not an interloper. I'm not, I'm actually there. I'm probably the only person in the world that's invited to the fucking funeral by the deceased person. So, and I'm speaking on their behalf. So even, the Islanders or the Scottish or the Irish, they all have the same idea and thought is that who the fuck is this guy? And then they think, oh shit, he's here on behalf of our loved one. Let's listen to what he has to say. So it becomes that type of thing. As far as the Fijian funeral goes, the one thing that I had to do, and I'm not a dancer. I can't. Fucked if I can dance, right? My wife would tell you I've got two left feet. I'm fucking hopeless. So I give it a go. But
I
I'm
feel
fucking,
like I could have said that about you. I feel like
yeah. I
without
can't,
saying
I
it,
can't
I
dance.
don't imagine you being a dancer.
No,
It
I
ain't your
can't.
bag.
I can't dance at all. And this guy said to me, he says, as soon as our song comes on, I want you to go up to my wife and ask her to dance. And I went, oh man, oh yeah, okay, and it was quite a feeling, quite a feeling. Like I said the words he wanted me to say, and then everybody else got up and said stuff, and usually I just leave. See, I don't know what happens. Usually after I say something, I just leave. But this time I had to stay, and I had to wait for the song, you know. And as soon as it started, I had to walk up this aisle, go up to this lady, hold my hand out, and she had to accept it because if she didn't, I looked like a real fuck. So
Hang
I've
on,
gone up.
hang on, hang on, hang on. So part of the deal from the guy that's deceased, part of the deal was for you to walk down the aisle of, I'm assuming, a church and ask the deceased wife to dance with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I want to talk about social media a little bit because one of your clients was a social media influencer. I can see, even if only from my own experience, how it can control you a little bit. And once you click on certain things, you get certain algorithms and you get information that you kind of were looking for anyway. But there's a side of social media that I haven't seen until I read in your book about a social media influencer. I think her name was Paula in your book.
Yeah. So I got to say, look, I don't have a big social media presence myself. I don't, because I don't really give a fuck about it. It is what it is, and I just go along, and I don't need thousands of followers and shit like that. I does not worry me, faze me at all. I'm Gen X. I was born 30. I'll die 30. I don't give a fuck, you know. But I got to say, this lady, over, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers, if we go all through her platforms, and 6 people turn up to her funeral. Fuck me. I mean, she's on a deathbed, and she has a lady comes in, and they go into the toilet of the fucking medical room that they're in, that she's dying in, and she's spruced up, and they put a camera in there, and the lighting's perfect, and she looks bloody gorgeous, and she does this, oh, I've just used these fucking products, they're unreal, they're the best. And then all of a sudden, cut, throws up, gets back into bed. I mean, I found it so pretentious in a way, but that really cut me, because I thought, this young girl has got, her whole world is fake. The whole fucking world's fake. And she's living this fake life, and in reality, she's dying. And no one gave a fuck. And I think that was because of the way she portrayed herself as an influencer, and the way that people say, and the average person will say, you're an influencer, big fucking deal. You make money doing what? Just putting your boobs out or selling products, and doing this shit. I'm not saying all influencers are bad. Some of them are quite good and quite, informative and educational. But these ones that are preyed upon by product agencies that send them their products and say, oh, spruik this product and we'll send you $5,000 plus we'll give you all the product because you've got 1 million followers. And they do that, not caring or giving a shit how the person feels or anything. So, I just found it very, very disheartening. I found it was a waste of life for her. But she did it till the day she died.
And what does she want you to do? Like, where did you come and fit into all this?
My role was basically to, go and see certain people that she had in her life that she wanted messages given to, personal messages. I did have to go and collect some items for her. I had to retrieve certain personal stuff that a young girl didn't want certain family members finding. Messages that were, in my opinion, the people that I delivered them to didn't give a fuck. They didn't care, and it was very, very hard for me to accept that this person was, it was like talking, or it was like being engaged by someone that was AI. You know what I mean? She wasn't real in a way. Like everything was just so fake and pretentious, and I wanted to grab her and shake her and say, you're dying. What the fuck are you doing? Who gives a fuck what color of lipstick you're wearing and your hair curlers are from this place or what, what about you? And it was hard.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
It's such a waste.
Well, it is, because social media, then what happens is that she's portraying this. No one's seeing the actual real person and what she's going through. But then you have another young girl that's going to do exactly the same as her, because they see her lifestyle and they go, oh, this is brilliant. What a great lifestyle. And to me, when I first saw this lady and I saw her lifestyle, I thought, fuck, that's unique. That's nice. Gee, she's got a nice car. Well, the car wasn't hers. The house wasn't hers. The unit wasn't hers. What she did have is a fucking nice green screen.
Right. That's wild. That's wild. And there's no sort of helping her, I guess.
No, it's like a drug, isn't it?
Well, you mentioned you had to collect some items. That's part of your role in a few of these situations. There was an old lady who asked you to take care of Clive.
Clive. Yeah, I've done a lot of jobs since talking to you, and that's the main job I do now. is go and do home sweeps or go and put items in coffins, but usually it's home sweeps. And yeah, going to people's homes is a doorway to their life in a way that other people don't see. This lady had me go and retrieve some certain items, and I did that for her. And then when I returned them to her, she mentioned that if I could go back, and we'd build up a bit of a trust relationship and a bit of banter, because I'd talk to her and she'd say something like, "Oh, geez, you're cute. Pity I'm dying." And I'd be like, "Oh, okay," you know. And so it was a bit of banter between me and her, and she was quite nice. And then all of a sudden she got serious and she said, "Look, I've got this item at home that I need you to collect." And I'm like, "I just fucking went all the way there and got you what you wanted. Why couldn't you know?" And she said, "Look, this one's very personal. It's something I need you to get." And I said, "Okay, who am I getting?" She says, "Oh, you got to go back and get Clive." And I'm thinking, oh, fuck, it's a pet. I never saw a bird, dog, cat, fish, whatever it was, you know. And I'm like, okay. And who's Clive? And she says, "Look, you'll see him when you see him, right? But he's in my bedside table, but he's not in the drawer." And I'm like, okay, well, where would he be if he's not in the drawer at the bedside table? And she says, "He's sort of Velcroed to the roof of the drawer." And I'm like, okay. And all this time, like, I'm thinking, okay, well, what could it be? And then it just hit me. You know, I said to her, I said, "Is this a sexual item, toy?" And she says, "Well, it is, dear, but we don't like to call them that, do we? This is my friend Clive. I've had him since my husband died, and he's been very, very good to me." I'm like, okay, got it,
Wow.
understand.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a couple, an old couple, I think it was Gail and Ted.
Mm.
And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, can you walk us through that situation?
Yeah, isn't it funny how revenge is a thing that a lot of people say you should never take revenge on anybody, or just let it go. It's water under the bridge, or water off a duck's back. Don't worry about it. Yeah, fuck that. Take revenge, I say. Uh, do what you can. Just don't have a co-accused, and do it in the middle of the night. But she was.
Tell me about the lady that took revenge on her husband when he found out she had cheated on her.
Yeah, so it started off, she was sitting in a cafe, and she was just sitting there, and she was upset, and, she'd been doing this for a while, going to this cafe, and then she noticed this lady that always brought a person in a wheelchair to the cafe, and they'd have a coffee and then move on. And she got to talking to this carer, and they got on really well. And after a few weeks, they became quite close and started talking about what their days were like, what's happening, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, just as they were talking this one day, this other lady came over and she says, "Oh, it's time for you to go, James." And the lady, my client would say to the lady, "Oh, where's he off to?" And she goes, "Oh, special services today." And she goes, "Oh, what do you mean?" And she says, "Well, everybody has needs, and James has a lady that he meets." And obviously it was a sex worker, and they got on very well. And my client ended up talking to this sex worker and asking her about this and that and what goes on and how it all works. And my client was so intrigued that she decided to become one for the disability people, disabled sex worker. And she said that at the start, she was always intrigued. She did things and got things that she wanted from her husband, but he'd never provide. She could be who she wanted to be, and most of all, she basically got revenge on her husband for being such a narcissistic wanderer of and player of other women. So she was quite happy with that in life.
So she became a sex worker for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And then, so what does she want you to do?
Confront her husband and tell him. Oh, that was gold. I had no problem doing that at all.
How did that play out?
That played out quite well. I'd go up to a guy that I don't know randomly and say, "G'day, mate, how are you? My name's Bill. I am the Coffin Confessor. Your wife's engaged me to give you this message." I open the letter and it reads, "Well, you know what? I knew you'd been sleeping around behind my back, not just with this person, this person, and this person, but also my friend, my lecturer, and my cousin. And he was a fucking list of people, and he sort of went red in the face. I don't know if he was more embarrassed because of what I was saying, but then I'd get to, and you know what I've been doing for the last 3 years? This is what I've been doing with the disability. And it spelled out exactly what she'd been doing and how she'd been doing it, who she'd been working for, and and she got to go on her terms and have said what she wanted said, and it was gold,
Oh, that is great chat. That's
Oh yeah, I
phenomenal.
mean, look, some people have ways of doing things. I got to say, the most recent one I've done is probably the most hurtful message I've ever delivered in my life to somebody, and it was very crushing for the person. At the same time, it's a job that I got to do, but this absolute prick of a bloke, abusive, narcissistic ass, who left a message for his wife, and the message was just him laughing. He got to have the last laugh, and it was so cruel. It was so demoralizing and heartbreaking for her, And I had to tell her, you know what? He may have had the last laugh, but you get to live on. You get to spend his money. You get to sell his house. You get to drive his car. Just think of things like that. Don't worry about him having the last laugh and shit like that. But
So
yeah,
so this was another case where the husband, who was an asshole, had engaged you for services to pass on a message with him having the last laugh.
yeah, and it was just him laughing like an absolute prick.
But you turn down things. You turn down a lot of
I
work
do.
because it doesn't
Yeah,
fit with you. So why did
I
you do that one?
I didn't. I don't view the videos or the USBs or anything at the time. I just go off what their word and what they've written to me or said to me. I don't encroach on their privacy, if you know what I mean. A lot of the letters that I will not read until the day I'm actually at the service. For this guy, when I investigated his claims that his wife and him were quite, separate. They lived in separate bedrooms. They did things like that. All that added up. There was nothing that didn't add up. It was all good, Um, I thought the message was going to be something heartfelt and, finally I'm sorry I did this, sorry I did that. But it wasn't. It was just him laughing. And I got the last laugh, which, he can think that all he wants, but he didn't.
What a fuckwit! What a
Oh, yeah, it was
fuckwit!
hard, very hard.
Yeah, there was a story about a girl called Monica that contacted you on Christmas Eve. She lost her daughter and her husband.
Yeah, that was the Christmas Eve before last year. Yeah, the year before last. Yeah, I said just a minute ago, I said, yeah, you can get revenge, just don't have a co-accused and do it in the middle of the night. And, I got to put myself out there and say that I don't never go backwards when I take revenge on somebody. And I've taken revenge on a few people in my life after what I've been through. But at the same time, this lady, her daughter was taken from her, on Christmas Eve, and her husband took his life a couple of years later because he just couldn't stand living knowing that his daughter had died. And it was a very tragic event for her. And oh man, I don't know. What do you say? What do you do? You have to go and confront certain people. And this person wanted the person that she died on the back of a bike with confronted because he was a real prick. And he was just an absolute, yeah, he was still a prick to the day I met him and the day I left, but I didn't leave him untouched, put it that way.
You didn't leave him untouched.
Oh, no. No, some people have to be force-fed the message. And unfortunately, people like him, that's something you just have to do. You can't just deliver a message and say, I've got a message for you, this is what it is, because some people just say, fuck off, don't care, don't want to hear it, don't want to know about it. But I'll play it out in a way that if it's a person that I believe needs to be force-fed the message, then they'll be force-fed the message. They'll get the message, whether they like it or not.
This girl that died, she died on the back of the motorcycle of her boyfriend at the time, who was drunk, right? And he made her go on the back of the car, back of the motorbike, and they crashed. She died, and he blamed her. And
he blamed her for trying to get off and cause the accident. And then he used to once everything settled down, that he blamed the parents and used to yell at the husband and tell him he's a weak prick and go up and slap him in restaurants or bars or cafes, wherever they were. He'd spit in their food and tell them their daughter was a piece of shit. And he was a real piece of work, that guy.
And what was the message that you sent him or gave him?
Even in death, I'm going to haunt you. I'm going to be there. I'm going to see everything you do. I'm going to make sure your life's a living hell. And this is where it starts. Meet the coffin confessor, Bill Edgar.
Good stuff. Good stuff. That's a tough one for you to do, isn't it? Because it's such a deep story as well.
Well, they're all sort of got their own angles and their own depth. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm just able to deliver it in a way that people need it delivered. I mean, obviously she couldn't deliver it. I can only imagine how her husband must have felt, being called a weak prick and a stupid old man walking down the street, getting blamed for his daughter's death that he had nothing to do with. I mean, it's a horrible thing. I mean, and we're all going to get old. I get it. I mean, I believe that one day, I've always believed in karma. I always have. And people say, oh, one day, Bill, you'll get your karma. Well, I probably will. But you know what? Karma only comes to those that have done the wrong thing by somebody else. So if I've done something wrong by somebody else, then I'll expect karma, and it comes. But I don't believe personally I've done anything to anybody else, that's not warranted.
I love the story about Billy the screen printer, because he's the guy that he did really well in business, and he had the vultures were circling.
How nice is it that somebody can have a competitor in the market, the same market as you, and you inflate your prices or bring your prices down, or you try to get as much business as you can than the other person, and you fight each other, and you both got the same type of product, different brand, and then all of a sudden one's dying and decides on his deathbed to give his competitor everything. That's gold. That's pretty cool.
Why?
Because he had no one to give it to that he could trust that could continue the business. It was a successful business. His estranged wife and her two kids, not his kids, they were so nice to him on his deathbed. And he'd say to me, fuck, Bill, see how nice they are? They're even going to get me a Coke and a donut. They're going to sneak it in. How good's that? He said, they wouldn't even come near me when I was well and everything was fine, unless it was for $1. Now they're being nice. They're asking me what I want, where I want to be buried, what do I want, thin life, and all this shit. And he says, they're just vultures, mate. And I said, yeah, I get that. I've seen them before, mate. What do you want to do about it? And he says, I'm going to play along with it. They're going to get everything I own. Not. I was like, fair enough. Okay, how's it going to play? And he says, well, it's going to go to my competitor. And I went, that bloke you said you fucking hated. And he goes, I never really hated him. I just, it's just business. And in business, you have competitors you hate or you like, and in my business, it was very competitive. So I want to give it to him. And I know he'll do well with it. And if he keeps the brand, he keeps the brand. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Well, he did keep the brand, and he was a really nice guy about it, and he's done well from it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I really love that story.
Did you get to tell the guy that he was getting the business?
Yeah. I was there because we had I believe that time there was the lawyer, a barrister, myself, and the guy's mum. The guy had a mother there. His mother was she was an elderly lady. She's very wealthy. She flew over from Canada. She hadn't seen her son for quite a while, but they'd Zoom now and then and talk, but they weren't as close like mother son type. And she had no qualms with him giving anything to anybody. She didn't know his life anyway in that regard, so she was quite happy.
So you've got into deliveries as well now, where people are asking you to deliver something to a loved one on good terms after they passed away.
Yeah, that's right. So I deliver gifts from the afterlife. I call it the Afterlife Delivery Service. It's quite unique. I love doing it because the expressions of people's faces are pretty cool. The one in Cairns, I delivered a letter, to a gentleman in Cairns who, what a fucking hot place that is.
It's
up
hot,
there.
right?
It's humid, it's hot, it's just, But anyway, I go up there to a place called Red Lynch, and I meet this gentleman out there, and he, invites me in. We have a beer, and I've got this letter for him, and it's just they don't expect anything. You know what I mean? It's like it could be an anniversary, a birthday, Christmas. It could be anything, and all of a sudden they get this gift from their loved one that died months earlier. And half of them that I've delivered to are like in shock. They're going, why the fuck would she do that? Why would she hire somebody like you? Then all of a sudden they'll open the gift and they'll go, oh my God, that's, and this, I got to tell you, this lady and her husband had been trying to save for a world trip on a boat, one of those cruises that you go a P&O cruise, and they've been saving. And every time they saved, she'd get so sick that the money would go to medical expenses. So they couldn't go on this trip. And every time they got to a point where they could nearly go and she was healthy, something fucking happened, But unbeknownst to him, she had a plan and she put money aside and she kept putting money aside. And she did this for quite some time. And I was engaged to knock on this guy's door and let him know that he's got a world trip on a boat and is to take his wife's ashes with him and they're to enjoy the trip, and this is from your wife. And as emotional it was such a great feeling, and to see the guy's face and just to know it wasn't about the trip for him. Though he didn't give a fuck about the trip. He more gave he was like, she did that for me, like, are you serious? And I go, yeah, mate. And like, and I said, and it's open-ended. You can go whenever you want. You don't have to go this year. You can go next year. You can go whenever you want, mate. And he's like, she did that for me. And I said, yeah. And he goes, fuck, she'd do anything for me, even in death. And I just went, oh man, that's beautiful. It really is,
That's so beautiful. That's such a nice thing to do.
And I'm just delivering gifts everywhere now, which is really cool. And it could just be a bunch of flowers or trips or, I got one here. I'm not going to show you, but I got one here, which is got to go to this lady. This is a gift that's going to be right left of anything I've ever done. Right. So this gift is, I'm going to knock on a lady's door, a married mother of 3 children, and I'm going to present her with a vibrator. But not just any vibrator. The vibrator is engraved. And on the engravement, it says, because your husband was a shit root in bed. Now, I thought, well, that could be a friend just, playing tricks on, use this instead of your husband, blah, blah, blah. But no, it turns out that the husband's been having an affair, right? And the person that died has got me to deliver this vibrator to this lady. But there's a catch. The vibrator says, because your husband's a shit root in bed, love, Tom. So this lady's going to find out that her husband's not only having an affair, or said been having an affair, but with a male.
So the person that's passed away, that's given you this task, is a guy that had been having an affair with this lady's husband, who also has 3 kids with them, and you're.
Yep. And this guy, this married man, has been saying to this guy that he's going to be leaving his wife and kids for the last 3 years and be with this bloke.
Oh no.
So in revenge, this is what he's done. Now, this is a job that I've taken on because I'm thinking to myself, do you allow this bloke to continue his life living as a lie with his wife and 3 kids, and the wife not knowing, and the wife ending up getting some fucking terminal disease or something? Do I just throw it in the bin and not worry about it? Or do I deliver it and let her make her own mind up? Because I keep thinking to myself, all women's, especially women's friends, would say, oh, fuck, if I found out my best friend's husband was screwing around, I'd tell her. So I thought, oh, yeah, well, fucking oath, I'll tell her, but I'll tell her in this way, I'll deliver the gift.
Yeah, she's got some pain ahead of her, but maybe some brighter horizons.
Well, I'm hoping so. And at the same time, I can understand the deceased guy, he was in love with this bloke. He get told lies all the time. And, the guy set him up in a unit. He had everything. They were lovers. It wasn't just like a fling. They were full-on lovers.
Fuck. How did the guy die?
He only just recently died. And he had multiple sclerosis, but he also had a couple of other. Yeah, he had I think it was a liver transplant problem that he'd had. So there's a few things. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Well, that's one way to end the podcast. Jesus. Gosh.
Yeah, you don't want to get that gift, do you?
No, you don't. No, you do not want to get an engraved dildo in the mail saying that your partner has been having an affair with someone of the same sex.
I think I'd rather get it in the mail than me handing it to her. But I've got to hand it to her. That's my job.
Oh, keep us up to date. Well, for the Coffin Confessor Part 3, we'll revisit that story and you can tell us how it ended up. How can people find out more about you and get hold of your books?
Oh, mate, just Google the Coffin Confessor. It's everywhere. It's happening. Although I'm picking and choosing what I'm doing these days.
Oh, good man.
I'm quite comfortable in that capacity. So yeah,
I don't think you're going to run out of business. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you want to know more about the Coffin Confessor, as Bill says, just Google it. Just Google it. And thank you very much for listening to this episode or watching it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and we'll be back again shortly. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Andy. Take care and hi to all your listeners. Thanks, mate.